Hello there.
Hello.
So today we're going to be talking about a number of things. We're going to be wading through some of the marketing garbage out there, talking about automated pen testing, which is a newer term that's come up, but we're also going to talk about vulnerability assessments, vulnerability scanning versus what actual pen testing is. So we'll even touch on how those two different things can coexist peacefully in the same environment, but how they are not the same thing. So these aren't the scans you're looking for is the name of the talk, and there are going to be a lot of Star Wars references, as you can see. So, all right, that's enough you walking carpet. So my name is David Sullivan. I'm a pen tester, offensive security services at CampusGuard. We're QSA, ASV, all that other stuff. We do PCI compliance, ongoing support, web app pen testing, phishing, remote, on-site, all that kind of stuff. I've worked for a few different government agencies here in Richmond, as well as a couple other private organizations. But something I just wanted to throw in here, I am a high school dropout who worked in construction before coming over to technology. So the only reason I threw that in there is because not everyone comes into security through the same path. It doesn't matter where you are right now. If you're a hiring manager, don't look at someone's past and really try to view them for their potential, because people can come from anywhere. So finally, my Twitter account there, @InfoSec. I also love Arrested Development, not just Star Wars. And there will be some Arrested Development references in here too today.
You mind pulling the mic up just a little bit closer to you?
Yes. Is that better?
I'll ask that.
Is that better in the back? Can you hear me? All right, cool. So we're going to start off with these two main terms that we're going to talk about, vulnerability assessments and penetration testing. Well, we'll get into, there's a little more nuance to these definitions, but the first thing we're going to talk about is vulnerability assessments. Typically you're talking about scanning for vulnerabilities, checking headers, versions, maybe some surface level exploitation, but that's usually automated, notes and false positives, and the entire process really is automated. And then when we're talking about penetration testing, there we're looking for vulnerabilities and misconfigurations again, but we attempt to verify those findings by exploiting them and then taking those exploits and going a step deeper. And so this may include some vulnerability scanning, but it's really a manual-driven test that is verified by automated, or that includes some automated testing. So some similarity between the terms, but as we go through, I think you'll be able to separate the two different things a lot more. So I just threw this in here. Don't take it from me. Tanya Janka is super knowledgeable. She works at Microsoft. She has a really good write-up on this. VA scans and pen tests, not the same thing. Check out her blog. Follow her. Most of her handles are SheHacksPurple on all the different accounts she's on. So later, I'm going to have a thing with a bunch of different people who I recommend following. But she's definitely one in this space that I think really defines these terms really well. So now we'll get into the meat and potatoes of it. Automated pen testing. So if you do a quick Google search just for the words automated pen testing, you're going to come up with all these different bullets here. The first one is a magic pen test for less than $200 with a 24-hour turnaround, unlimited scope, and a guarantee of 0 false positives. Another one, the power of 1,000 pen testers with a simple click of a button. You could have daily pen tests using their service. That's how automated it is. Other ones use different trademark terms to describe how they would follow the same paths that human pen testers follow. And I think the last one there really was the funniest to me. 7 minutes away from knowing if you're secure with our APT simulation of your security posture. So it will only take them 7 minutes to replicate what Russia and China do. And that's all it takes, just 7 minutes. So it's ridiculous, right? All these companies are claiming to provide something that can outperform what the industry does right now. And they're saying they can do it quicker, more accurate results, and cheaper. So I don't know about you. All of these claims seem bogus to me. They don't really pass the scent test. If anything, those are just scans. If you get this Arrested Development reference, I'm very proud of you. If you don't, I'm not going to explain it to you. Yeah, those companies are all just offering scans. They're just scans. Some of them may be good scans. They may be better than just running a Nessus report or running something else. They may actually reduce false positives, but they're still just scans. They're not anything that is new or far-fetched. So why are they calling them automated pen tests? Where did this even come from? Well, a big part of the problem is there are a number of pen testing companies who just do vulnerability scans, and they call them pen tests. John Strand, I think, gives this a good term. He calls them pen test puppy mills. So these are just companies that churn out Nessus, Qualys, Acunetics, all different kinds of reports. They add in some screenshots, put their company logo on it, and they just call that a pen test. I can tell you on one recent RFP that we went over, one of the companies bidding asked if it was okay to simulate attacks for the pen test, but not actually perform any exploitations. But if we go back and think about what the definition of a pen test is, you exploit vulnerabilities. That's part of the process. So if a company asks you, hey, we want to do a pen test, but we're not going to actually exploit anything, are they offering you a pen test? No, they're offering you a vulnerability scan. So if you're on that side, the business side, and you're looking to vet a company, they come back with a question like this, just realize in advance you're getting a vulnerability scan. You're not getting a penetration test. So don't fall for the mind tricks or any hand waving. A Nessus report is not and never will be a pen test. So, but just getting back to that, that's the reason why we're seeing automated pen testing gain some foothold in this space. Because there's other companies doing the same exact thing, but they're lying about what they're doing, and they're charging you for a pen test, but they're just giving you a vulnerability scan. So these automated pen testers come in, they're upfront about what they're doing. They tell you, we're not going to actually do anything, we're just going to run some scans and call it a pen test. So if we want to make a difference and do things the right way, we're going to need to draw a line in the sand between these two terms, and we're going to have to do things better. If we're on the hiring side, we want to hire consultants that are honest, that actually do pen testing and not charge you for a pen test when they do a vulnerability scan. And if we're on the technical side, we don't want to do a vulnerability scan and tell someone it's a pen test. So the rest of this talk today is going to kind of touch on both of those points, how from a technical side we can do things better, but also from a business side, how you can tell if who you're hiring is doing a better job than they claim to be. So who really cares, right? That when you're talking to C-level people, you're talking to management, they might not care what you call it. They just want a report that meets their compliance requirements, or the scans provide some useful insight, so they don't really care what you call it, they just want the results. But the real question is, what is your end goal? So that can be a little tricky. Some organizations just want to be compliant. So they know that they require a yearly pen test, so whoever gives them a piece of paper that says this is a pen test and you passed, they're fine with that. Should we be fine with that, though? One of the things we run across is that these kind of pen tests are often scoped so small that there's not even anything there. They're having us look at this small area for compliance while the rest of the organization has terrible vulnerabilities, eternal blue, other things, but we're not allowed to look at those. They don't want to know about that. They just want to know, are we compliant? So if that's your end goal, maybe you don't care, but that shouldn't be your end goal. You should care more about that. Maybe you're looking for some outside confirmation. This will come more if you're one of the defensive guys or girls and you're working on the team and you just want, yeah, I've found these things, we need external confirmation because no one's listening to me. And that can be frustrating. I know a lot of security internal teams get frustrated with this. We're going to touch on it a little bit more later. But that might be another one of your goals. You might just be looking for external confirmation. And then these last 3 points: prevent breaches, prevent bad press, secure confidential data. These are where a real pen test is going to give you better results than a vulnerability scanner or just a plain old vulnerability assessment. And a good illustration to think of is if you wanted to go get your heart monitored or you wanted to get your heart health checked out, would you be content with going up to the pharmacy, putting your arm in the machine, and getting a blood pressure reading? Or would you rather go to a cardiologist and get a full workup? Again, it depends on what your goal is. If you know you have heart problems, you probably need to go see a cardiologist. If you're doing all this hygiene stuff already, maybe vulnerability assessments, maybe the blood pressure machine might be enough to get you by for right now, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So you really need to know what your goals are. You need to know all the different threats out there for you. So if you want to get better results as a pen tester or an organization that's hiring one, then hopefully some of the stuff we talk about today is going to get you to your end goal. That said, obviously not even the best security advisor or pen tester is going to be able to promise you that you'll have no breaches, that the bad press won't be there, that your data will be completely secure, any more than going to a cardiologist is going to completely secure your heart health. You might still have problems, but you'll be in a better, healthier position if you meet with the right experts on that. So, what is a real pen test? I like this picture. I'm nowhere near the guy on the left, I guess. The guy on the right, I like that guy. But we're just going to touch back on these things again. So this is important to anyone who's hiring so you can spot the difference between the two. Obviously, these two men are very different, even though at a quick glance they might have some similarities. This is where I put too many notes in. So, yeah, a real pen test. It combines automated and manual testing. It's not just an automated thing. It can never just be an automated thing. It needs human logic, human reasoning to analyze the results. The second point there, making use of tools without blindly relying on them. That's another big thing, especially for us people on the technical side. There are a lot of tools that come back with a lot of false positives, and they miss things. So we don't want to just run those tools and then just trust them inherently. We want to dig into what they find and what they don't find and go even further. And that hits on the next bullet point there, where you compare the different results from the tools, look for further attack vectors, see if there's something else that it's missing. The next bullet point kind of goes back to the business side of things. If you're doing a pen test, you want it scoped for real-world results. We talked about that a little bit with the compliance test. They typically aren't scoped for real-world results. They're scoped for compliance. But a good pen test is scoped. This is what an attacker sees, do it. Like, you don't want to do a pen test where you say, okay, the mail servers are in scope, but you can't touch the DCs, because an attacker, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to try to get credentials. And if you can't touch the domain controllers as a pen tester, you can't get those credentials to use against the mail server. So vulnerability scanning is probably what you want there, because that's going to tell you if the mail server's patched. But a fully scoped pen test where you can do all those different pieces are going to find out the things that the vulnerability scans miss. And the last point there, risk-based findings. Compliance stuff doesn't always agree with this. Compliance findings sometimes require certain things that aren't a legitimate high risk or critical risk to be patched. And while those are good findings, there are other things that they may not require to be patched that are technically high and critical level findings. I know one we find all the time is where you can poison the network and listen for LNR relays and collect hashes. That's not a requirement for some compliance things, but that is a very good attack vector, and it usually leads to a lot of compromise. So that's something we put in our pen test reports, and it's something that you should be aware of. So now comes the part that I'm dreading a little bit, because I did not make a video of this. This is going to be completely live. So we're going to run a couple tools, analyze the results from those tools, and then see what we find from a manual test afterwards. So I was told I should have done a video of this just as a backup, but that's why I've got a bad feeling about this. So I'm also starting to burn up here, so I'm going to take this part off. So let me just start here.
Burn up like Anakin.
Yeah. Thankfully, there's no volcanoes around here. This isn't Mustafar. So for the purpose of this demo, we're going to load up two simple authenticated web servers, something simple you can do with Python. They're going to run on ports 80, 81, and 80, 82. And then the idea here is that we'll run these tools against the sites, look at the results, and then go back and see if the tools missed anything. So I'm going to have to look at two different screens. So the first one we want to do. Oop. I didn't mean to put in run there. Oh, come on. And this is why.
You just had a space.
Yeah, it was space living.
There we go. Oh. There we go. That's all I needed to do. Address already in use. That should not be a thing. All right. I can change that quick. I am a fan of Nano. I don't believe in Vim. And you can see the passwords right there that will be getting used for the two different things, which is fine. This keeps falling. So, all right, so we have both our servers running. And so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go over here and we're going to run one of our favorite tools. It's made by Chris Sulu, who is here at RVAsec. He is one of the guys who helps organize it. And he actually convinced me to do this talk. And so I wanted to poke at his tool as part of the talk. So we'll let that run real quick. And we're going to notice some interesting results from it right away. So we see right here, it found that default admin account. It found an entry for the super secret directory in robots.txt. And it also found that some frame headers are missing and things like that. And that the simple HTTP also appears to be outdated. So these are all decent findings. These are all good things that you can use as a pen tester. They'd be good to let your customers know. So we're going to go, let me make sure I'm doing this right, in the right order. Yeah, so let's just go to the website now. If I can find my mouse. Oh, it's on this one. I can't find my mouse. It's not leaving the main screen. There we go. So let's. So go to that 127.0.0.1, 8083. Oh, I forgot I have to turn burp on. Burp Suite is also an amazing tool that we use if you're not a technical person, or if you are a technical person who doesn't use Burp Suite. Use it. It's incredible. Let's see, temporary. And we'll just turn the proxy off. So we know that the password is admin from looking at the results from Nikto. Hello and welcome to the test server. We don't really see anything else on here, but we know that there was a directory, or there was a robots.txt file. We can look at that. We see disallow super secret directory. So we'll take a look at that. And there's nothing in there. So it found some valid things. It didn't get us any farther than this. If we go to 8084, let's say we try admin there. That doesn't work. So we can go back. Same thing here, we see in burp, it's found the clear text submission of password. It found the robots.txt file, unencrypted communications, the spider. It's running now, but it's not going to find anything else because there wasn't really anything else there. So now we'll run Nikto against our second host. Again, it finds the simple HTTP is outdated. It's a notable finding. But we know that that's not going to come up with anything more than that. Where does the mouse keep going? There it is. So we'll just let that minimize. And now we'll take a look at another free tool. It's not the greatest tool, but for a free tool, it's actually not that bad. It's called OpenVAS, which some people might be familiar with. Plugin. What? That's not right. All right, there might be some kind of other proxying going on. Well, the results from that were the same as everything else we've looked at anyway. Here we can see it's not authenticated to 8084. But let's go back and take a manual look at 8083. So this doesn't really seem to show much, but if we just do view page source, okay, nothing there. Oh, that was the other thing we wanted to look at. All right, one more tool to run. I hope I'm not doing terrible on time. Probably am. So another tool we commonly use is Derby. That could be right.
Who's the P?
Thanks. I don't know what I'd do without you, Nick. And here we'll even put in the credentials that we had found from Nikto. And while this is running, I'll just note that Nikto is also a race of aliens from Star Wars. So I don't know if Chris even knows that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They are on the sail barge on Jabba's sail barge in Return of the Jedi. I like Star Wars a little too much.
Do you know where Chris came with the term Nicto from?
No.
Army of Darkness.
Oh, really?
It's also
The day of yours.
the day of the Earth stood still. Flat's brother.
Interesting.
But he came up from Army of Darkness.
Okay.
Nicto.
All right, so here we found another directory that wasn't found by Nikto, wasn't found by Burke, Z working files. I think this is a German directory. So let's go to Z working files. So beep boop bop. Someone made fun of me for that yesterday, for not doing beep boop beep. But so here again, it looks like everything's fine. But again, let's view the page source. And oh, there's a super duper secret directory in the code up here that our crawler didn't find. So we'll copy that, paste and go.
Change the port number.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Oh no, you found me. We'll view page source again. And here's another directory. Are you kidding me? I think the ports are, I just missed that, yeah. So now we know this would have been found by a human is the admin password to port 8084. So now if we go back, admin, this would have been found by a human, and all of our files are belong to you. So, vulnerability scanners, tools, didn't find any of this stuff. We had to actually look at the source code. That's something we'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide, which I need to pull back up. I think I'm doing okay on time. Oh, I need to close this. All right.
Good job on the demo. Worked out.
It was not. Thank you. I probably should have done a video like I was told to. We made it through with help from you guys. Suspend this one. Keep losing the mouse though. There we go. Okay. So the question you're probably asking in your head right now is this even realistic, what we just did? Looking at source code, finding directories that have passwords and other commented text. And the short answer is yes, this is very real. And the long answer is yes, this is very real. But it depends. So obviously it was a simple example. Creds usually aren't this easy to find, but they are this easy to find sometimes. Developers leave stuff in the code all the time that they shouldn't. We've seen Gmail credentials, connection string info, passwords, decryption keys, all of that stuff in commented code that wasn't picked up on by any scanners or tools. Even more expensive tools, because obviously these were all free tools that we showed today, but we use a lot of tools that we pay for that are much more thorough, and they still miss stuff. The example of finding the decryption keys was an interesting one because you had to go to multiple locations to figure everything out. So there was one part in the commented code that told you where they got their code from for the server-side code. So we went on Stack Overflow, pulled down that C# code, wrote it up. Then we found another part in another commented code that said that the passwords for the decryption were the name of the function. And then we found another list that had the lists of all the names of the functions. So we were able to take the code we found on Stack Overflow, put it in, get one working user credential, plug that in, and then reverse it, and then get into every single application as multiple different users, because we could then just encrypt the user token and use that against the server. So this is real. This stuff happens. It's in commented code all of the time. So don't rely on automation. The bad guys don't. They might sometimes, but the good ones aren't going to. So another thing we come across is, well, we passed our pen test, we're secure, right? Well, it depends. You know, from a certain point of view, you might be. But again, if we're talking about scoping, if you're scoping things to be unrealistic, you're not secure. You're compliant. Compliant does not equal secure. That's something that we need to talk about with executives all the time. We need to talk about it with even CISOs and ISOs and even people doing the grunt work on the security teams. Compliance is not security. So you have to ask these different questions. What was the scope? What were the targets? Was it a scan or a pen test? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I am on my notes. So I can give you an example of another thing we came across, that a scan would have been meaningless because we were doing a pen test that had a publicly accessible GitLab open to the internet. Everything was good on the outside, like the default passwords were changed. It was up to the current patches, trying to brute force accounts that we found for other parts of the network didn't work. Yada, yada, yada. All that stuff didn't work, but we did find that we could create a guest account. A vulnerability scanner is not going to create a guest account. So we created a guest account on this GitLab, logged in, it looked empty. Okay, but now we started to do some queries, and we found the other user's code was shared with anyone who was logged into that GitLab. So we then went from there and we got to all the code for the entire organization, which again had hard-coded credentials. It had internal PCI related stuff in the code that was just terrible. So when you're hiring a pen testing company, or you're even doing a pen test internally, you want to make sure that you're using reputable people. And that kind of goes into our next slide. If it sounds good to be true, too good to be true, it probably is, right? We've said it 100 times, a scan is not a pen test. Some of the other things you want to avoid are people who just use buzzwords and don't even know what they mean. So if someone's saying, well, our technology, we use AI or machine learning pen tests, and we do automation on the blockchain. Do they even know what those words mean? A lot of people don't. AI is another word for a cascading group of questions where it's just a bunch of yes or no's, really. It's not, AI does not really exist at this point. Blockchain, that's a database. So great, your tool uses a database, so does every other tool. You just happen to have your logs public on the blockchain. So it's something to watch out for. They may still be good products, but don't rely on someone who just uses buzzwords and don't know what those buzzwords mean or anything else about their product. The one that I really like, it's actually kind of funny. If you do a Google search for AI pen test, you'll come across some pretty interesting claims. There was one, I didn't put it in here, but there was one that claimed that it could do, it updated while it was running, it updated new definitions, and that it was the work of 1,000 pen testers all at once, and that I think it tied in with that 7-minute pen test too. We've had Nmap scans for a single host take longer than 7 minutes. I don't know how you're going to do an unlimited scope pen test in 7 minutes. So another thing that I just put in here real quick are trendy security solutions. This can be things like crowdsourced solutions. While they have their place, bug bounties have their place. If you don't know what your vulnerability scans are, if you haven't done pen tests, you're probably not ready for bug bounties. You're probably not ready for crowdsourced solutions. If we think back to that cardiologist example, a crowdsourced solution is like going and getting an EKG and then posting it on the internet and looking for people to tell you what's wrong with you. If you haven't gotten that read by a cardiologist already, you're not going to know what is good advice and what's bad advice. So you want to watch out for jumping to those trendy security solutions without already having the basics down. So there's a lot of different service offerings, a lot of different terms.
It's not a Star Wars slide.
This is not a Star Wars slide, but I had this song in my head the day that I was writing this, so I decided to throw a slide in there anyway. So you have all these different things: security program, risk management program, vulnerability assessments, pen testing, phishing exercises, red team, bug bounty, etc. Where do you start? Well, you start at the top. If you don't have a basic security program, you shouldn't be doing a bug bounty. If you don't have a vulnerability assessment program, you're not ready for a red team exercise. So this is the general flow that you want to do things. We'll dig into 4 of these terms a little bit more on the next slide, just because I think I'm running low on time.
He just said you have 15 minutes.
Okay, cool. I need to look up more because that's probably helpful. So where are we with everything? So vulnerability scans. Again, we're talking from the top down. This is probably about the order you should do things in generally. Vulnerability scans are anything that relies solely or mostly on automated scans. Anything that claims to be an automated pen test is a vulnerability scan. It falls into that bucket. Anything that just tests the surface without going further and exploiting vulnerabilities, that's a vulnerability scan or a vulnerability assessment. Pen testing is where manual and automated testing get mixed together, but it really focuses on the manual testing. But depending on the needs of what you're testing, the scope is going to change. The amount of manual testing and automated testing is going to change based on scope and different things. But with a pen test, I think it was brought out really good in the red team talk, if anyone went to that, by Jason. A pen test is trying to find as much as you can in a short time period. It's really about testing the breadth of your security and then going from the depth from there. So when we go to a red team, there we're looking for testing the depth of your controls. So you're not looking for as many entry points as possible. You're looking for a few entry points and then seeing how deep you can go with those. Where a pen test, you don't care how loud you are. A red team, you're trying to be quiet. You're trying to evade any security protections they have in place. And then a bug bounty, that combines all different things. It's typically a crowdsourced program. It combines multiple different testing methodologies. I'm not knocking on bug bounty programs at all. I'm actually signed up for a few of them myself and have submitted things to Google and Microsoft and Yahoo. But it's something that you need to be doing everything else right before you go for a bug bounty. It's not something you start with. And I think the person who knows the most about this, we'll just read from her, is Kate Masouras, Katie Moe. She gave the keynote here last year on this very thing, and she's probably one of, if not the most important people in the bug bounty field. She started the bug bounty program at Microsoft. She did work for HackerOne and now runs her own consulting firm. So if you think your organization is ready for something like this, or you want to move towards setting one up, look at some of her research on it. But you can see from here, she says, we all had high hopes for the defense market for bugs. The hype hasn't reached the effectiveness as currently over-marketed. The business model of bug bounties is under fire from the bug bounty companies themselves, saying there's not enough money in it. And this is talking about how HackerOne found out that 97% of their own researchers have never sold a bug. So when you hire a crowdsourced solution or you go into the bug bounty market, you don't know which testers you're getting. There are some really, really good people out there. One of them is even here in Richmond, who I think is in the top 5 on HackerOne. But you don't know if that person is going to be working on your organization or if you're just going to get people who are going to run Nessus, not find anything, and then call it a day. And those findings should be getting done with your vulnerability assessments anyway, so you shouldn't have those out there for your bug bounty program. So she has a lot of good examples. Check out her keynote from last year's RVAsec. It should be up on the website. I'm pretty sure it is. I think I've watched it again. She even talked about the guy who stole the tank last year and drove through Richmond, so that was a pretty good talk. But Kate Masouras is just awesome. Follow her. I can't add anything to anything she said. So now we get to that final question. Who should be performing your pen test? In general, there's a bunch of different viable solutions. From a management and a technical standpoint, there's advantages and disadvantages. But let's talk about internal assets first. When we're talking about internal assets, it's not necessarily people just on the security team. These are people who are just on your company's payroll. You know, maybe they're on the infrastructure team or they're on the web team, but they have a lot of technical expertise in that area. Bring them on board. Use them as part of your internal security program, so that way it's not just one team making all the decisions. It's subject matter experts from each team being able to be a part of that and add to it. And if you do have a good internal team, that's awesome. Use them. But the biggest issue we see with internal teams is they're not often empowered to actually do the testing. One of the places that I used to work, and no one from that place is in here right now, so I'm going to say it. I once asked if I could run Wireshark on the guest network, and I was told, no, that's too dangerous. As a security person, I was not allowed to run Wireshark on an open public network that our company provided because they felt that was too dangerous. That's not empowering your internal people. That's discouraging your internal people, and it can cause more problems. So that's not the kind of stuff you want to do. If you have
It's a good way to make your internal people external people.
That was actually my next point. So yeah, if you want your internal people to leave and then come back as a consultant and charge you more than you were paying them when they worked for you, that's a great way to do it. Don't let them find bugs for you. Nope, not going there. So now we want to talk about other things, because there's a lot of different ways to bypass automated protections. And using internal people, they're going to know what your internal protections are already. They're going to be a really good insight into that. So use your internal people as much as you can. It's going to cost you less, and it will give you it'll empower them. They'll feel better about what they're doing. But what if you don't have internal resources that you can use, or you need to use an external vendor for compliance reasons, or you just want people who are even more skilled to be doing this while looking at external vendors? You want to take a look at a number of different things. The general rule there is you get what you pay for. That other slide that had the bear with the free pen test van, you probably know what you're going to get with that. But if you pay for the $200 magic pen test, you're probably only going to get about $200 worth of results, if that. So watch what you're hiring when you look for different vendors. On the same token, paying more doesn't automatically mean you're going to get a better test. If we talk about Tanya Janka, who we talked about earlier, she has some really great questions that you can ask. Where is it? So this is her example question that she asked any vendors coming in. Pretend I'm a programmer and you found a cross-site request forgery in my app. Explain to me what it is and how to fix it. If you're hiring an external company to do a pen test for you and they can't answer that question, they aren't going to be a good pen testing company. Some other points you brought out, if they respond by talking over your head, trying to say things that don't sound right to you, if they talk down to you, trying to make you feel stupid, if they give you an incorrect answer or just can't explain it, these are all signs that you should probably steer clear of that vendor. Pretty sound advice when vetting a company. Another thing, ask for sample reports. If they provide a sample report and it looks like an ESSIS report, it probably is an ESSIS report. So you know that they're probably not going beyond those manual tests, or the automated tests. So we get to our final thing here. Nothing is impregnable. We covered a lot today, but I think we can learn a big lesson from the destruction of the Death Star. Before the plans fell into the hands of the Rebel Alliance, how many times do you think the Empire looked over those plans? How many times do you think they had them scanned? Admiral Mahdi, if people remember, if anyone gets that reference, awesome. If you don't get that reference, he was the guy who Vader eventually choked in A New Hope. But he was so confident that he claimed that even though the Alliance had the plans for the station, that any attack against it would be a useless gesture. Have you heard those same kind of arrogant claims from your engineers? From your C-level people? Your sysadmins? I can't tell you how many times we've heard it. But because the Alliance took a look at those plans, and they had skilled people not just running it through a scan, but looking for something specific, a specific weakness from an attacker's mindset, they were able to find that flaw. So a good pen testing company should be able to do the same. Where scans fail, technically skilled attackers prevail. Don't let your organization be taken down by a single flaw the size of a womp rat. Don't be content with just doing automated scans. Instead, use a well-vetted, technically skilled company or person or people in your company who aren't afraid to get their hands a little dirty and do some manual testing. So I'm really short on time. The takeaways are here. The slide's going to be up somewhere. I don't know if RVAsec will provide them. If not, I'll provide the slides if you want these, but we have some takeaways there. Some additional training resources for anyone who's a technical person. Burp Suite Academy is free. It's awesome. Their cross-site request forgery labs are just great. Pen Tester Academy is a good one. Over the Wire. Blackroom Sec, Tara has compiled a bunch of different things all into one site, so that's another good one. And then, again, just a bunch of accounts to follow. These are all Twitter handles. All these are great people who know a lot about this. And I included my employer in there because I work for them. We would love your business. But with that, is there any questions before we finish? Yes.
Wasn't the defect in the Death Star put there by an insider?
It was.
Okay.
And that's actually a lot of things with the bug bounty programs. If you look at some of Cadensaurus's work, as the numbers crawl for bug bounty programs, the incentive to purposely put bugs in kind of goes up too. Yes.
My question is, in your steps, you go directly from red team to bug bounty. Do you not have a purple team step where you're actually doing the mitigations with the help of blue team before you start doing outsourcing?
So that is a great question. Because of lack of time and this being a 101 course, purple teaming is a little more advanced. But yeah, purple teaming is awesome, where you have your own internal red team, internal blue team, and they're testing each other, and you have a team that kind of works both sides of the house. Yeah, purple teaming is great. Anyone else? Cool, thank you. May the force be with you.